Only one planet ever confirmed by science orbits two suns at once. Its sky holds two shadows at noon, its year bends around two different gravities pulling in two different directions, and depending on where it sits in that dance, it can go from blistering heat to a cold that would crack stone, all within the same orbit. Astronomers call it Kepler 16b, and for a long time they weren't even sure a planet like that could survive. Now, picture that happening here. Picture Earth, our Earth, circling not one sun but two. Would you even recognize a single sunset again, or would you be watching two suns slide down at once, painting the sky in colors we don't have names for yet? That single question is where this really starts. The first thing that changes is something you'd notice before you even understood why. Depending on where the second sun sat in our sky, some days would barely get dark at all. A dim, secondary daylight could linger long after what used to be sunset, cutting into the deep dark we've built our entire biology around. Think about how disorienting it already feels to lose an hour of sleep when the clocks shift in spring. Now imagine losing real, true darkness for weeks at a time, some years, depending on the orbit. Farmers watching crops, animals waiting for nightfall to hunt, your own body clock. All of it thrown off by a sky that refuses to fully go dark. And that's only the gentlest version of what two suns would do to us, because next comes something far less gentle. The seasons themselves would stop making sense. Right now, Earth's seasons come from one steady tilt, one predictable path around one star. Add a second sun with its own gravity, its own rhythm, and that predictability disappears. Some years could bring summers hot enough to boil rivers dry, followed by winters that plunge so low the oceans start freezing at the edges. Not a gradual shift like the one we're used to, but violent swings, sometimes within a single generation. We're talking about a planet where normal weather simply stops existing as a category. Farmers wouldn't just complain about a bad harvest. They'd have no season to plan around at all. And that swinging climate is only the surface of a deeper problem, because gravity doesn't just tug on oceans and tides, it tugs on the orbit itself. A second sun means a second competing gravitational pull constantly reshaping Earth's path. Instead of the near-perfect circle we quietly depend on, our orbit could stretch into something closer to an ellipse, swinging us dramatically closer and then dramatically farther from both stars over time. That's the part almost nobody thinks about when they picture two suns as just double the sunshine. It isn't double sunshine. It's an orbit under constant negotiation between two rival forces of gravity, and Earth would be the one paying the price for that negotiation, one wobble at a time. If you were subscribed for the kind of science that flips your assumptions like this, now's the moment to hit that button, because what's coming next changes categories entirely, because up until now, everything we've covered still fits inside rough weather and strange skies. What comes next moves into something far more dangerous. The habitable zone itself, the narrow band of space where liquid water and life can exist at all, stops being a fixed address. Around a single star, that zone sits in roughly the same place year after year, century after century. Around two stars locked in their own orbital tug-of-war, that safe zone can drift, shrink, or vanish entirely depending on where the stars are in their own dance around each other. A planet can be comfortably habitable one century and outside the safe zone the next. Not because anything on the ground changed, but because the very definition of safe distance moved out from under it. That instability doesn't stop at temperature either. It threatens the orbit's very survival. Simulations of real binary star systems show something startling. Many possible orbits around two stars simply aren't stable over long timescales. A planet can hold a steady path for thousands of years and then, as the two stars shift relative to each other, get nudged just enough to spiral outward or inward, breaking free of any predictable rhythm at all. If you dropped Earth into a random orbit around two suns, there's a real chance it wouldn't stay a planet with seasons and stable years. It would eventually become a runaway, a wild card with no fixed home in its own solar system. Now, picture what that instability would actually feel like from the ground, if you were standing outside on one of those unstable years. Two disks of light climbing the sky together, casting overlapping shadows in directions your eyes don't expect. A warmth on your skin that shifts strength depending on which sun is higher, sometimes both at once, doubling the intensity in a way sunscreen was never designed for. It's the kind of afternoon that would look almost peaceful from a photograph, and yet be quietly rewriting the climate underneath it, one subtle shift at a time. And it's not just heat and light we're talking about anymore. its radiation, and what it does to an atmosphere over deep time. Two stars means, in many configurations, close to double the ultraviolet and stellar wind bombarding a planet's outer atmosphere. Earth's atmosphere already gets slowly stripped by our single sun's solar wind, a process scientists can measure happening right now, tiny amounts at a time. Double that exposure, and over millions of years, an atmosphere thin enough to breathe could get thinned out entirely, leaving surface life exposed to radiation levels that would make current sunburn concerns look almost quaint by comparison. Which raises the question almost nobody wants to sit with for too long. Could complex life, the kind that reads and breathes and builds telescopes to study stars, even have gotten started under two suns in the first place? Photosynthesis, as we know it, evolved to run on one specific spectrum of light, tuned over billions of years to a single sun's output. Two suns with different temperatures and different colors of light would scramble that signal completely. Plants might need to run two competing chemical processes just to survive daylight that never quite settles into one rhythm. It's entirely possible that on a real two-sun Earth, the very first step toward anything we'd recognize as life would already look unrecognizable to us. But everything so far has assumed our two suns stay comfortably far apart, politely orbiting each other from a distance. Reality gets far stranger when binary stars sit close enough to start exchanging material directly. Astronomers have documented systems where one star in a pair literally pulls streams of gas off its neighbor, a slow-motion theft of stellar material stretching across unimaginable distances. In the most extreme of these systems, the two stars can even share a single, shared outer envelope of gas, essentially fusing into one chaotic, overlapping structure for a period of their lives. Any planet orbiting nearby wouldn't just deal with unstable seasons anymore, it would be sitting next to two stars actively rearranging in themselves with no guarantee its orbit survives the process at all. And two suns turn out to be far from the ceiling of what's out there. Some confirmed systems have three stars locked in mutual orbit. A small number have four, arranged in nested pairs orbiting each other's centers of mass in patterns that take specialized software just to model correctly. Every additional star multiplies the gravitational tug-of-war a planet has to survive, and multiplies the number of ways an orbit can eventually break down into chaos. If two suns already push a planet's stability to the edge, 3 or 4 suns turn stable orbit into something closer to a lottery. Which brings us to the most unsettling possibility of all, one astrophysicist model, but hope never happens close to home: total orbital ejection. Under the right unstable configuration, the competing gravity of multiple stars can build up over millions of years until a planet simply gets flung out of the system entirely, hurled into the freezing dark between stars as what scientists call a rogue planet, drifting with no sun at all, forever. Picture that as the final chapter of a two-sun Earth, a world that once had double sunsets and double warmth, eventually losing its grip on both stars completely and disappearing into a darkness with no sunrise ever again. Some of the rogue planets astronomers have already detected, drifting through our galaxy, may have started out orbiting stars just like this, before the math finally caught up with them. Whether Earth, in some other configuration of the universe, could have been one of them is a question nobody has fully answered yet, and maybe nobody ever will. If this changed the way you look at our one, quiet, stable sun, make sure you're subscribed, drop a like on this one, and tell me in the comments which part of a two-sun Earth messed with your head the most.